The subject is Intuitional practice and its necessity. An all round effort for emancipation from the bondage of Prakriti is sadhana or intuitional practice. The question now is to determine if complete emancipation from the bondage of Prakriti is possible. It would otherwise be only a waste of time to carry out intuitional practices or sadhana. In an earlier chapter dealing with the creation, it was explained that the qualified supreme entity, Sakun Brahma, which was called Prajapati, because of being under the influence of Prakriti, Baddha Purush, became free, Mukta, from the bondage by carrying out intuitional practices, sadhana, and was called Hiranyagarbha. It can thus be concluded that those under the bondage of Prakriti can attain freedom with the help of intuitional practice sadhana. Freedom from the bondage of Prakriti means attaining the Nirguna status. It is only then that one is completely emancipated from the bondage of Prakriti. Prajapati attained the status of Hiranyagarbha, that is, he became free of the bondage of Prakriti. Only by doing sadhana, intuitional practice, emancipation from the influence of Prakriti is thus possible. Only method of attaining it is sadhana, intuitional practice. The story of creation shows that in the phase of movement from crude to subtle, and the unit consciousness reflects itself clearly by taking shelter in a body made of the five rudimental factors derived from the qualified supreme entity. On its reflecting completely, the unit consciousness also gets a mind due to the qualified influence of Prakriti. The three principles of Prakriti, sentient, mutative, and static, gave its mind the three functional forms of Mahatattva, Aham Tattva, and Chitta, respectively. Chitta is further projected through the 10 physical organs or indriyas. This means that the unit consciousness, because of gradual increase in the qualifying influence of Prakriti, got metamorphosed as Mahat Tattva or Buddhi Tattva. Then, with the increase of influence, it became cruder as Aham Tattva, till finally it became even more crude as Chitta, and its Chitta, with the help of the 10 physical organs or indriyas, started projecting in the form of crude physical actions. The influence of Prakriti gained a hold on unit consciousness gradually, and hence, in order to get out of her hold, the unit consciousness will have to retract gradually. It will have to first retract from Chitta to Aham Tattva, then from Aham Tattva to Mahat Tattva, and finally the metamorphosed projection as Mahat Tattva will have to be withdrawn into unit consciousness for emancipation from the hold of Prakriti. Thus, intuitional practice is intended gradually to withdraw the qualifying influence of Prakriti so that she is no longer able to impose her qualities on consciousness. It was said earlier that it is consciousness, Purusha, in human beings which has to carry out sadhana or intuitional practice. Hence, the preliminary sadhana, intuitional practice, has to be carried out by the consciousness metamorphosed as Chitta, by which this projection of consciousness retracts into Aham Tattva. This leaves only Aham Tattva and Mahat Tattva. So, the next entity to carry out sadhana is the consciousness metamorphosed as Aham Tattva. It is to free itself from the qualifying influence of principle of Prakriti, creating it by its dissolution into Mahat Tattva. Thus, only Mahat Tattva or pure feeling of I remains. This is the stage of Savikalp Samadhi, where only Mahat Tattva or pure I feeling indistinguishable from the cosmic I remains. After this Mahat Tattva carries out sadhana and dissolves itself in the unit consciousness completely, freeing consciousness of the qualities imposed by the influence of Prakriti. It achieves emancipation from the bondage of Prakriti, and that is called Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Thus, the sadhana or intuitional practice that human beings have to carry out begins with Chitta, to be followed by Aham Tattva and finally by Mahat Tattva, which emancipates consciousness completely from the qualifying influence of Prakriti. It is not easy to liberate mind from the qualifying influence of Prakriti. Human beings have a unit consciousness, and hence it is it unit Prakriti only which influences it. It is not so. The consciousness in Nirguna Brahma, non-qualified supreme entity, is not influenced by Prakriti because there, she is the weaker counterpart. Since infinite Prakriti is not able to influence infinite consciousness, unit Prakriti will not be in a position to influence unit consciousness either. It would be incorrect to presume that in the qualified state of Brahma, it is unit Prakriti which qualifies the unit consciousness. If this is not so, which Prakriti does qualify the consciousness, as without Prakriti qualifying it, there would be no Saguna Brahma or qualified supreme entity. It may be assumed from this that two units of Prakriti qualify one unit consciousness, as a single unit Prakriti is the weaker counterpart of unit consciousness. This would also lead to the assumption that infinite cosmic consciousness is being qualified by two infinite Prakritis. This is not logical and cannot happen. Prakriti is a unique force and it can never be divided into units or parts. Hence, only infinite Prakriti can influence every unit consciousness. If infinite Prakriti qualifies every unit consciousness by her infinite qualifying influence, the unit consciousness has to fight against infinite Prakriti for emancipation. It has to fight against and defeat infinite Prakriti for emancipation, and hence sadhana is not an easy task. Prakriti is a composite force which is always restless, and so the creation is ever changing. All that is manifested in this Srishti Chakra cycle of creation is metamorphosed cosmic consciousness, and hence changes in the cycle of creation also change the cosmic mind accordingly. That is, the cosmic mind also becomes restless, and that brings about changes in the flow of creation. But the changes in the flow of creation are slow, and gradually, as Prakriti takes quite some time to bring about a change in the infinite mind, it is only because of cosmic consciousness being infinite that changes are gradually and not very quick. Even the ever-mutative Prakriti takes some time to bring about a rotation of the entire infinite cosmic mind in order to bring about a change. While bringing the cosmic mind under greater bondage, Prakriti also influences the unit mind bringing about unfathomable restlessness and movement in it due to the complete influence of infinite Prakriti. The unit becomes extremely disturbed and mutatory. The fickleness and ever changing nature of the mind needs no description as everyone understands it well. This quality in the human mind is the sole gift of Prakriti, who imparts to all that she creates her quality of perpetual restlessness. The perpetual restlessness of Prakriti makes her creation, the unit mind, also disturbed throughout its existence. At times or in some places it may be more agitated, while at others it may be less disturbed. Restlessness, being a quality imposed by Prakriti, will vary with the influence of Prakriti. The mind is less agitated or disturbed where the influence of Prakriti is less. Her influence is the least in Mahatattva and the most in Chitta, and hence the former is less restless than the latter. Sadhana or intuitional practice lessens the influence of Prakriti on unit consciousness, and with that the restlessness of mind also lessens. Prakriti alone is responsible for imparting disturbance to the mind, and with the waning of her influence, the vacillation of mind also lessens. Hence, the vacillation of mind cannot be steadied unless unit consciousness is emancipated from the influence of Prakriti. Studying the vacillation of the mind and developing concentration of mind is the same thing. Concentration of mind is thus not possible as long as unit consciousness is not liberated from the qualifying influence of Prakriti. This is the aim of sadhana or intuitional practice also. To concentrate the mind, it would be necessary to liberate first of all its most exterior manifestation, the chitta, from the influence of Prakriti. The next would be Aham Tattva, and finally Mahat Tattva or Buddhi Tattva must be liberated from her influence. The mind spread in Chitta, Aham Tattva, and Mahat Tattva must gradually be withdrawn from them, and then alone will it be concentrated. Thus, concentration of mind is nothing else but sadhana or intuitional practice which liberates unit from the influence of Prakriti. How far concentration of mind leads to emancipation needs to be determined. Complete withdrawal of mind from its manifestations in concentration of mind, but it is not annihilation of mind. Mind is created due to the qualifying influence of Prakriti over unit consciousness, and as long as mind exists, the influence of Prakriti must be present. Concentration of mind does not mean emancipation from bondage of Prakriti. It is only the surest path leading to emancipation. Even with complete concentration, mind exists, but the influence of Prakriti it is completely unable to cause restlessness. The qualifying influence of the principle of Prakriti is the least on Mahat Tattva, and in a concentrated mind, only Mahat Tattva is left, as the other two counterparts, Aham Tattva and Chitta, are withdrawn into it. As long as mind is not annihilated, Mahat Tattva or Buddhi Tattva will exist. Mahat Tattva is the knowledge of existence or pure feeling of I. Hence, concentration of mind is not complete emancipation, moksha or mahanirvana. Concentration of mind is only savikalpa samadhi, where the only feeling that remains is I am that. The creation becomes crude due to the increasing influence of Prakriti. When the influence is greater, it is cruder, while with less influence, it is subtle. So, in one's mind, Mahatattva is the subtlest and Chitta the crudest. It is with mind only that sadhana or intuitional practice for emancipation has to be carried out. The crudeness or subtlety depends on the degree of the influence of Prakriti, and with the decrease in her influence, the mind will retract into the subtle. Ordinarily, the mind is absorbed in the things of the world, which come into being as a result of the highest order of the influence of Prakriti on cosmic Chit. Mind, being absorbed in the external expression of crudeness, undergoes even greater influence of Prakriti. It was seen earlier that with complete reflection of unit consciousness, human mind attains freedom of action, and with that arises the wish to overthrow the yoke of Prakriti. So, Prakriti created two illusionary opposing concepts or ideas called Maya. These are Avidya Maya and Vidya Maya. People who make directs use of their freedom in the pursuit of Vidya Maya soon get back to the supreme rank, because Vidya Maya directs the mind to the subtle, which those who take recourse to Avidya Maya keep on experiencing the reactions of their actions, karmafal, which make them roam in the thought waves of the qualified supreme entity. Avidya Maya drags and absorbs the mind into crude objects. Avidya Maya really acts as the weapon with which Prakriti keeps the mind under her subjugation of binding it to the crude things of the world. Sadhana or intuitional practice leads one to freedom from the bondage of Prakriti, and the mind becomes subtle. The decrease in the influence of Prakriti takes the mind towards subtlety, and the subtle and past no longer bother and bind it. Just as the decrease in the influence of Prakriti release one from the fetters and influence of Avidya Maya, the converse, that the release from the fetters and influence of Avidya Maya should decrease the influence of Prakriti, is also true. Avidya Maya will thus never be able to help one in obtaining emancipation, as it only binds the mind and absorbs it in the crude things of the world, which make it more crude and increase the influence of Prakriti over it. To study the vacillation of the mind, to concentrate the mind, to make the mind more subtle, are the ways to achieve freedom from the bondage of Prakriti. One who pursues Avidya Maya will not be able to achieve any of these. A mind absorbed in the crude objects of the world will only become more crude as vacillation will increase and concentration become an impossibility. Such a mind will never be able to achieve emancipation and become free of the bondage of Prakriti. Abandoning the pursuit of Avidya Maya is thus imperative for achieving emancipation. Unit consciousness secures release from the bondage of Prakriti and attains the supreme rank with the practice of sadhana, intuitional practice. Consciousness is subdued wherever the influence of Prakriti is greater. Consciousness is absolutely knowledge, jnana, which includes intuition and intellect. Hence, the greater influence of Prakriti leads to greater ignorance as consciousness gets subdued. Decrease in the influence of Prakriti will naturally lead to greater wisdom and clear reflection of consciousness, because the influence of Prakriti is the reason for ignorance. Intuitional practice removes or decreases the influence of Prakriti and would obviously lead one to greater knowledge, jnana, and a clearer reflection of consciousness.